Thursday night football divisional matchup, Seattle, San Francisco. This is an interesting game. Both these teams coming off losses. San Francisco, everybody's talking about how it's it's a spiral. Who is this team without Christian McCaffrey? They might as well not even play. This team is so bad. That being said, this market opened at 3.5, is currently sitting at 3.5. Or sorry, open at 3, currently sitting at 3.5. There has been pressure, though, to grab those 3.5s up on Seattle. Our number makes this 5 in favor of the 49ers. Slight edge to bet it. We obviously, it's not enough edge for us to bet it, not at the 4%, but there is value on San Francisco. Give me your thoughts, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, shout out to the model because we were on Arizona plus 7.5, and they straight up won outright. And I got to be honest, for me, that there's definitely concern with both these teams. First and foremost, let's talk about the 49ers game and how they got a little wonky once Jake Moody got injured. Essentially, they had to abandon the kicking game except for one chip shot field goal that they put in with, I believe, with Wisnowski. But other than that, they did sign Matthew Wright to a one-year deal. Obviously, they're not going to not have a kicker going forward. But, what does that look like? For me, I think the bigger issue is who are these teams and what can we expect from them going forward? And you look at it, what San Francisco has always hung their hat on has been their success rate, one, and their echo rate, right? Like, how often are these teams driving the ball, getting to the opponent's 40 where you expect to see points? And that is somewhere where San Francisco, despite all this sort of controversy, has really excelled at. Yes, CMC is out. We've seen Jordan Mason for a few games now. I do expect to see more of the same. What's concerning to me, though, is what are we seeing out of the Seattle team? This is a team that, let's be fair, was leading the NFC West, right? A team that no one was really talking about. And they just kind of quietly did their thing. And then they lost to the Giants. That, to me, is very concerning. But, again, it's the NFL. Anything can happen for one game. But when you look at this matchup strictly on who these teams are on an advanced metric statement or advanced metric setting, let's not overreact. Let's not overthink this one. The model does show value in San Francisco. And I, for one, I still agree with that. I do think in and out, they are the better team to top to bottom. I have questions about what's going on with Seattle and that loss to New York.
Yeah. And I think that's all well said. I think the one thing I will point out here is it does seem a bit of overreaction to me for San Francisco. San Francisco's 60% echo rate given this season. This isn't last season. That's this season, 60% echo rate. One of the best in the league. When we're looking at the defense for Seattle, though, they're giving up 44% echo rate. So, I mean, I do think San Francisco is going to be able to move the ball. Also, both these quarterbacks quite interesting. If we look at our EPA per game, so how many points are these quarterbacks adding per game in the last 10 games? These are two of the best quarterbacks in our database. Purdy at 8 points added per game, and Geno with 7.2. Those are good for second and sixth in our database. So, I mean, these quarterbacks are actually playing somewhat well in that larger sample. I don't know. This to me is just an interesting game. San Francisco is still throwing the ball well. They're the 5th overall pass EPA, 18th against or 18 with the rush. So I think Seattle has an opportunity here to potentially slow them down, though, with the 9th pass defense and the 8th rushing defense. The one thing I will point at from an angle standpoint and a rest standpoint, which we find significant in our model, it's actually something we account for, is the rest differential and coming off a short week versus long week. And this is a new Seattle coaching staff. They have never handled a Thursday night game before. They've never had to come up with a game plan. They've never had to get, ready in a short week. Is there an angle there going up against a quote unquote more mature or seasoned coaching staff with Shanahan and crew and 49ers? Could be an edge there. And quite frankly, I'm just not sold that San Francisco is as bad as everyone's making it out to be. I don't think I find Seattle's loss to the Giants as bad. I don't think that the Giants are actually, I think they're pretty good defensively. They're about a median team defensively. And like you said, you add a good defensive matchup and then some variance offensively, you can get upset. So I'm going to firmly believe the model here. I think 5.5 is the play. If I were to play this, I think the 5 is the number. I think 3.5 is probably the play I'd play. And you can get cheap 3.5. Minus 102 is the best I'm seeing on the board right now. Plus 100, pick them. You can get it even money. 3.5 Caesars, I think is the play for me. If I'm going to be betting.
Yeah, and what I found was interesting on that, going back to that Giants Seahawks game. So if you look down, shout out to PFF for giving their game recap and player grades. But if you look at that game where the Giants won, they had an average EPA per play of negative 0.01, which is pretty much about zero. So to your point, about having a good defense and being able to take advantage of that if you're facing Seattle. The question I have is, do you expect the San Francisco 49ers to end the game with a negative EPA per play? Absolutely not. I don't, at least, right? And so, for me, it's part of the mental
Probably not.
model that, yeah, I agree. Let's not overreact here. Give Arizona credit for a good win, but I expect business as normal when we go back for San Francisco versus Seattle.
Yeah, and if there is one weak spot for San Francisco this season, I think it is defensively. So to your point,
Mhm.
I mean, I think this is probably going to be a normal divisional matchup. I
Yeah.
think I just lean that I think right now is a good spot to buy San Francisco. Pretty much in the NFL, when it feels horrible to buy the team, that's when you have to buy them, unfortunately, because it's so efficient. And I don't know if that it feels horrible to buy San Francisco here, but obviously some recency bias. They just lost to the Cardinals. The kicking issue is maybe a consideration here of why you do not want to cover a 3.5 spread, and may give you some hesitation and probably should come into the handicap here. Because to your point, things like PATs become a lot less, automatic, and those are
Mhm.
really, really crucial for your key numbers. And so covering 3.5 may, take a hit there. So it maybe is an angle to consider if you want to be a Seattle backer, that you just think there's too many headwinds here for this San Francisco team. And it's just enough for the kicking issue to kind of put you over the edge to want to be there. Divisional game 3.5. I mean, you could convince me that there's some value. Obviously, I'm gonna kind of trust the model, so to speak, because it's taking a lot of this stuff into consideration, right? So
Yeah.
that's where my head is. That's where my heart is. Anything else on this game?
No, 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 no.